With the Chris Heasley radio show, and on today's show we have Aaron Fowler of Clarity Loft. And to just start the show, I just want to, the entire purpose of today's show is health and wellness. And, it was 10 years ago that Alex Jones talked about the frogs. And he talked about how they were putting, they were manipulating our foods, and they were doing tests on frogs and changing the gender of frogs. And everyone called him a crazy conspiracy theorist 10 years ago. But now here in the present, RFK Jr. is validating Alex Jones' statement from 10 years earlier. Of course, RFK Jr. is he's more eloquent, and he substantiates it with facts and data and court proceedings. And essentially what he's telling us is that through, it is called atrazine, which is something that they're putting on our foods. It is taking male frogs and having them produce eggs, having them grow ovaries, and begin the transition of genders. And, again, the question is this gender transition mania that we have just continues to just come at us from all angles. We have this obsession with the hypersexualization of our society at so many levels, and then there appears to even be a strategy to a chemical strategy to put things in our foods. And we have to ask the question, how is this happening? Is it just one more coincidence? Is it just one more happenstance? Or is it a coordinated plan? Because is it a coordinated plan? And if it is a coordinated plan, then we have to ask, who are the suspects behind this plan? Because it just keeps coming at us over and over again. And so I think that we have a lot of serious questions in front of us, and that's why we brought Aaron Fowler on today. Aaron, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. And so you're with Clarity Loft, correct?
Yes.
Okay, what is Clarity Loft?
That's my own company. I'm a speech and language pathologist, and I work with kids all the way to adults. And I've really made it a point to study health and nutrition, and to also study energy work and meditation, and how that can make me to be a better speech pathologist and offer more services to my clients. And then that led me to getting all kinds of clients who don't need speech therapy. They are looking for something else.
We've always been taught that what was at one time traditional remedies, which is not pharmaceutical, chemical-based drugs, right? Traditional therapies. We have been taught since birth that these are completely discredited, that they are just they're nonsensical. They are they're for people that are just not well grounded, right? They're not serious remedies. But at the same time, these, I would say, more natural therapies were the default method before pharmaceuticals came to be. They were the default method on which our country operated for the first 100+ years. And then this movement happened, and I believe that it was at the banker class, at the establishment level, began to discredit it, and I think there was a profit motive involved. But tell me what you think. Do you think that traditional remedies are they just wishful thinking, or are they a true solution for it can comfortably be said, a declining health level in our population?
Oh, absolutely. I think nature provides us with what we need in its true form, without all the additives and side effects. And I love this. First, I have to back up before I forget to say this, and I can let it go. Everything I say here today is not medical advice. It's for your entertainment only. And the state of Texas makes us say that. I actually, even when I go to a traditional Chinese medicine doctor and I get acupuncture, I think what's interesting is when you look at other cultures and other countries, they've had traditional remedies and herbs as their medicine for thousands and thousands of years. And so it's more here, and maybe more in Western societies where allopathic medicine came in. where we think of that as woo-woo or even labeled as witchcraft or, at least ineffective, or it'll hurt you, don't eat that plant, it might kill you, but they're not worried about their 10 medications at home and all the side effects at home and how they don't know how that's interacting with their body. So absolutely, I think natural remedies are real and they're growing in your backyard, and a lot of people kill them with weed killer, which is pretty sad. So a common one is we could say the dandelion. So there's a whole bunch of all this in the news right now about heart conditions and more heart attacks now, especially in young people. And one of the things that can help the cardiovascular system is the dandelion. And people spray their grass all the time for weeds in order to kill them. And I think that's pretty sad because nature's offering a remedy right in their backyard.
Yeah. Again, we've always been taught that the Chinese are aloof with their untested methods, untested ways. Now, my wife is from near China. She's from Russia, and she brought a lot of these more untraditional, natural remedies into our household. But again, the Chinese have been using these for our entire lifetime. We're told that they're off base somewhat. Mm-hmm. But I'm sorry to ask the same question cheap. Over again.
It's very inexpensive to use that to heal your body. I don't even want to call it medicine. But it's very inexpensive. It's very affordable and it can be effective. I think the problem is with when they say testing of it, there are a lot of places that will pump these things out where maybe it's not bioavailable, even vitamins and supplements and things like that. It might sound good ingredients, but they might not be bioavailable, which means your body's going to absorb it. So I think some of it comes in manufacturing. Are they manufacturing something that your body can absorb? And it's maybe not, and maybe they are adding things in at that level, but that doesn't discredit the knowledge and the wisdom that we have about plants and herbs and food and how food is medicine and food can be very, very healing. And even something simple like drinking enough water. And then you get into other issues like, well, what kind of water are you drinking? There's a lot of information even just about water. I mean, we were talking before we signed into this about energy levels and different, water has different structures. So the water that comes out of our tap here in Houston is going to be a different structure of water than water that you get out of a clean spring and drink it straight from the spring. So it's going to be very different. There's going to be life in that other water that's killed through the process of a closed water system. And like a closed water system means like that when you flush your toilet, then it goes and gets cleaned in the city facilities and tanks and things like that. And it goes to another tank and it sits and then it goes back into the water system. And what's happening now when we are peeing and going to the bathroom and washing everything and all the chemicals that you could possibly think of that go into our water, what's happening is they are not filtering that out. So they are finding things like birth control and pharmaceuticals and things like that in the water. So I think it's a little bit more than what Alex Jones is saying there. I think it's a huge combination of things that are affecting our energy levels and are affecting our identity and finding that willpower and strength and I think it's killing our drive to keep going. I think it's killing endurance. I think it's making people have brain fog and fatigue. And you just don't know, the filters aren't filtering it out.
I thought that our water went out into the ocean. I mean, you're saying that it's recycled back into our drinking water?
For some cities. I should have looked at Houston. I'm still kind of new here. But yeah, It's called a closed water system. And that's what a closed water system is. There's a great documentary called Dark Sludge or Black Sludge or something. I could give it to you to watch later. But they actually take and they were interviewing people in Austin during that documentary. They take the sludge and then they dry it all out, right? So they clean the water, they get all the sludge in there, the black goo, they dry it out, and then they use that as organic soil, things they add into the soil, and they're actually able to call it organic.
I mean, the concept is good.
It's crazy.
You know? Well, I mean, the concept like that we're using are, you know, it's something that we all kind of like we kind of can understand that. But when there's birth control that's still laced into our soils and our foods and our waters,
And all the pharmaceuticals and
Yeah.
everything else. And then you're using it, you think it's fertilizer. So you're like, oh, I got my organic fertilizer. I'm putting it on my plants. I'm going to grow these great plants. But your plants just sucked that up too. And then it just becomes more of a cycle. One more toxin in.
I mean, like, again, you know, getting back to it, it was in the 1920s that they had determined that they had this heavy metal called fluoride, and they hired a marketing executive, the first propagandist to ever exist. And he said, okay, I know what I'll do. I'll start making articles about how it supplements water. And he was wildly successful at it. And I'm sure they had more than just him. They probably had feet on the street salesmen that were out there knocking on doors to get city governments to begin putting fluoride in the water. And it was a profit motive entirely. And now we have this heavy metal in our water. And, you know, and so just more to your point that I feel like what you're telling me is that this is not all, you know, what you just described with the closed system. It's like we are living in a prison planet, right? We're eating our own waste. Okay. It's disgusting. It's gross. They're putting heavy metals in our water. It just comes at us from all angles. How can our bodies not be weighed down with this stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it goes back to this is kind of bringing in, but the practice, it's like, well, what can we do about it? I like to try to be solution based too. You know, filter your water. There are things to structure your water. Water likes to flow and move in circular patterns. So there are some people that say, you know, you can put some even river stones or whatever, and then swirl it around the water, and that helps to restructure chemically the water. And because what they're doing now with the water is it's moving at 90-degree angles through straight pipes, so it's moving in a way. There's a Dr. Emoto who has done wonderful research of water. He's still researching today. And so people can look up his research on water. A lot of people are familiar with that, but he's been able to look under the microscope at different waters from different cities, from their tap water, and then also look at water that's been blessed, that's been prayed over, or from a spring, a natural spring, and you can see the beauty of those other waters compared to our naturals. It's right there, all in a picture. And you say, well, which one would you rather drink? And he's even done it with music, so played different music. There's a famous study where he put 3 different jars of rice, and then you put the water in the rice. And so and he just put a word on it. So one word was like about love, and they have replicated this study over and over now. One's full of love, one you put negative hate energy in, and the other one you leave alone and you don't do anything to. So which one do you think would be the rice that would mold the fastest?
The one that's cared for.
It was the one that was neglected. Yeah, the one that was left alone molded the worst.
Yeah, that's what my point was.
Yeah, the one that was not cared for, you meant.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
And then
my point is the one that was cared for. Describe the 3 again.
Okay, the one that was love. So you'd pick it up and you would just kind of bless it with words of love.
Yeah.
I love you. I love you. I love you. And then you just put it down and go about.
I think
your
that
day.
one would bloom the best.
Yes. So that one did the best.
That's what I was trying to say.
Sorry. And then the one that was hate was the second best. And the one that had the most mold, you don't want the mold.
Right.
The one that had the most mold and decayed the most was the neglected one. It was left alone. But I think there's a lot about that, about the structure of water. And there's devices now that can structure your water. They're pretty pricey. But as far as solutions go, definitely we need to try to filter our water more than when it comes out of the tap. I think everybody knows that around
What
here.
about bottled water?
Well, that's the thing with bottled water is all the phthalates that come from the plastic.
Yeah, I feel like that's getting me.
Yeah, and I think so too. Yeah, and because you're trying to avoid, you want healthy water, so you buy the water and it comes in plastic, and we don't know when that water's been bottled or anything like that. And actually, a lot of that bottled water, they just get out of the tap at different cities. So and then they truck it across here to deliver it.
I have a family member, my cousin in Pennsylvania. He lives out in the beautiful woods of Pennsylvania, where when the snow's on the ground, it's just so beautiful. The night sky, you can see every star in the sky, and he lives right next to a natural spring, and he gets all of his water from it. He had the state come down and test the quality of water in that spring, and it's possibly the best in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I believe it. I would be scared to even get it tested because then they know to go there and get your water. These water ownership, they threaten a lot of times that, maybe threaten's not the right word, but they're putting out there to get people used to it, to the idea of water being privately owned. And a lot of people are saying that's going to be the next thing they're going to use to control people with is water. There's some fun facts about who owns most of the spring water areas in the United States.
Okay, so you said when we met that a good way to describe your work is energy work. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
Energy work is, so let me take back for a second. Everyone, because I don't want to make it sound like it's something that's such a special thing. We all exchange energy all the time. When you have someone you love and they give you a hug and you feel good, that is an energy exchange. You just received energy from them and it made you feel good. When you have a little kid that's crying and they hurt themselves and they run over and they get a little kiss on their boo-boo and all of a sudden they really do completely change. They stop crying, they take a pause, maybe a little tiny breather, and then they run and they go play. And that's energy work. And we've all experienced that and been on the receiving side of that, and we've all given that. We've all been hopefully prayed for by a loved one who's sent prayers our way, and they can be anywhere in the world and pray for us. And you feel the effects of that, and you know that you can hold that space and pray for people that you love too. And there's not that limitation like, oh, they have to be in the room or they have to be in the city. Like, you can pray for your grandma wherever your grandma may be. And whoever, I think that we can talk about the different prayers too, but energy work is just an exchange of the love and the life force energy that we are all operating on. So different people call it different things, different cultures call it different things. Chi, prana, are two of the most popular ones, I would say, that people can kind of say, oh yeah, I've heard of that before. Life force energy, the love, the light. And it's holding space for people in order to get a healing. And to dedicate that time to heal something that they want to make better.
Okay, have you ever heard of Robert Sepher, Sephr?
Ooh, I feel like maybe I have watched some of his videos. Yeah.
Because
Is he an anthropologist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I've come across these topics through his videos.
Oh, cool.
But we've been told again that this is all hocus pocus nonsense. Mm-hmm. So how do you substantiate these ideas?
I think that's the first thing they usually say to discredit anything is, oh, that's stupid. Mm-hmm. There were even wars fought, right, like over science, and that we accept as science today. They even fought wars over like the number 0, if it should exist or not. And now we're like, what does that mean? How could you do math without the number 0, right? But there was a time in history where they were truly fighting over if that should be put out to the public, that 0 exists or not. I don't really pay too much attention to those claims because to me it works. And
How do you know it works?
I've been validated many times. People come back for more. They refer on. I go home from work, I feel good. And well, now I work for myself from home most of the time, but when I'm done with any kind of work I do, I have energy to keep going. I don't feel like I'm out of energy afterward. Whereas before I had this in my life, I was pretty tired and drained. So like when you're in a field where you're working with a lot of people, you're connecting to people, and you go home and you're tired, you were giving of your personal energy and you weren't tapping into all the resources and abundance that there is to give. There's always and you don't have to give from your personal reserves, right? You can tap into that energy that's all around us.
So how do you access it?
How do you access it? Let's see. Like how would anyone access that energy?
One of your patients or yourself.
Yeah, really, it's just taking a minute, taking a deep breath, and setting the intention of accessing it, truly. And anyone can do this. I offer workshops and trainings, and a lot of people do. I think it's like a muscle. You can definitely get stronger at it, and the more time that you study something and practice it and learn from a real teacher, you're going to get better at any of those things. But anyone can just say, God, whatever God means to them, my creator, label it however you want. Please help me. Please help me right now do this thing. And may it be for the highest good. And all of a sudden, boom, like you have what do you do to prepare for your show, to access energy for your show?
Well,
there's always moment.
No, there's no question.
Yeah.
I have a method of getting into a good mood.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like giving myself a treat of some sort. Mm-hmm. Like I like to drink a caffeine drink in the morning, right? And so I open that, puts me in a good mood. I feel like I'm getting a Christmas present under the Christmas tree. And then I allow my mind to get into a brainstorming phase, like let the ideas flow, right? And don't get critical on them at first. Just let them flow. Mm-hmm. And then even when you are critical of your ideas, you do it in a way that is positive, where you're constructively criticizing the thoughts in your mind to form an argument. And then what I do is I get it down. I practice. I practice in the shower. I practice in the car. I was at a friend's house in a swimming pool, and I was sitting there talking to myself because I was thinking through, a show topic or something like that. And he looks over, "What are you doing, man?" But the other thing is that when I run, I love running, and running puts me into a high state, right? Like a natural high. And when I run, the ideas flow, and I get my phone out and I start taking mental notes of everything I'm thinking through. Those are the ways that I do it.
Yeah. So you take a moment, you fill with intention. You fill up on a treat, but you can fill up on anything. I'll fill up on something, and you are purposely saying, "This is my time to take in something that I like." Right.
Yeah.
So you're doing that. You're opening up, and you're letting it flow.
Yeah.
And that's the same as if you're an athlete, if you're a dancer, if you're a singer, if you're a writer. It's very similar to when you do energy work, right? It's very similar to those things that people can maybe relate to who are able to get into the flow. Because there are many people I feel like that don't really get to experience that flow too often, or they don't know how to put it in different areas of their life. Yeah, and it's about intention setting at the beginning. And similar to you, like you can set up for something beforehand, so I tend to do the same thing. But if I know I have whatever coming up for my day, I prepare for that before I actually even get there.
Yeah, the other thing I do a lot of weight training, and what that does is that puts me in a state of in a good way of good exhaustion, right? So that at any moment in time, I could just close my eyes for 5 minutes and get a power nap in. And then after the power nap, I feel incredible.
Yeah.
But the goal is what weight training does is it's not there's two types of being tired. There's strung out tired, which I cannot stand. And then there's that healthy, crisp, tired, where like, again, you could just close your eyes, get a power nap. That's the state I want to be in all the time. And weight training, rigorous weight training, it puts me in that state where I'm walking in that state. I feel so alive with that.
Exercise is something, and even especially resistance, where you have a resistance as part of your exercise. I think that's something that's often skipped, especially in the medical world. How often do you see your doctors and nurses and they're healthy? I mean, I spent a lot of time at one of the most major hospitals in the United States, and I would say I had one healthy nurse that came in looking like they spent time exercising. And then the other staff, like, oh, forget it. And the doctors come in, they look burnt out, and overweight and everything else. So
yeah, I met a doctor, and he was a young professional. He was the senior manager over like a pretty good sized wing of a hospital. Mm-hmm. He worked incessantly, and he would start his day off with Mountain Dew and snow cone cupcakes.
Yeah.
And
all you have to do is go into those break rooms. I've been in those break rooms. It's never healthy food. They never have healthy food in the break rooms at any of the... I do contracts for speech therapy, so I've been in plenty of them. I stay out of the break room. At schools, it's the same thing. Yeah.
And they don't have healthy mental inputs. Mm-hmm. When you're there, the TV's on, and it is producing the lowest level garbage, daytime TV, talk shows, Jerry Springer type shows. And so if you're in a hospital, it's like being in a prison sentence.
Yeah.
I have to eat their snow cone cupcakes. I have to eat their applesauce out of a plastic cup. Mm-hmm. And I got to watch Jerry Springer. I mean, I'd rather not,
Yeah. And you don't get fresh air. The windows don't open.
Yeah.
You don't, maybe you get some sunlight if you're lucky into your room through the windows. But the fluorescent lights are on all the time. That's not good either.
And they talk to you in a condescending tone, like you're a child. They use that tone of, okay, now we're going to do this. How are you this morning? Always like you're hearing your third grade teacher talk to you. And it is, I just want to say, can you not talk to me like I'm an adult?
Right. Right.
They make you wear that gurney, your butt's sticking out the backside, right? So you look like a fool.
I've had plenty of those talks, even advocating for my own family in the hospitals in that way. And I will chase them down, and I will say, my grandmother knows what's going on, and she just can't hear you. So can you come back in and repeat that? I'm going to write down everything you say. I have them come back in because they, yeah. And I think that's where advocacy, when you do have someone in the hospital, you have to have family around. You can't just leave them there alone.
I remember my father, they demean you to such an extent. My grandfather went through it in his last days. My father went through it when he was going in and out of the hospital. He's passed. And I remember him saying to them, he got so mad at me, shook his hands. He said, I put 7 trucks on the road. And what he meant by that is that in his professional career, he was a branch manager of a snack food company, and he maxed out his territory. I put 7 trucks on the road. Don't talk to me like I'm a child. Now, those hospitals, they don't even know what that means, 7 trucks on a road. But the point is that they're completely disrespecting the man. He is a built man.
Yeah.
He's had a life of completing things, of achievement.
Yeah.
And they know you're a third grader now, and we're going to talk to you like a third grader because we have our medical degrees and you don't.
Right.
There is a serious level of supremacy that comes from the medical schools.
Yeah, well, they've just been, it starts off where you don't get to talk to the doctor. You have to talk to 2 people before you even get to see your doctor. You're lucky if you get a doctor now. Maybe it's someone who's a medical practitioner who's not really a doctor, but they're sending them in as a doctor these days. I'm blanking on the word for that. I'll come back to that. Mm-hmm. But so you tell your story to the first person, and they type it in. You tell your story again. By the time the third person comes in, you're like, well, didn't you hear my story? And so a lot of time, they're supposed to be putting in what you say. They're summarizing, if you're lucky, what you say. And so you think that the doctor got the information, and they don't. They don't have the information. And I always wonder, why is this, from a communication specialist, this is a terrible setup, that they don't just talk to the doctor. I think they do that so the doctor can prepare, right? Outside the room, they're supposed to read the chart and come in with some kind of knowledge base. But what's happening is there's a lot of information lost. And that's if they're even paying attention and taking you seriously. And a lot of times they don't. They don't put in, after COVID changed so many things. Before COVID, we were trained to put in what family was saying, as long as they had permission from the patient. And you put in what the patient is saying, and you put in all of the notes. And now they don't. They don't put in those notes. Even, this is
To save their own
Yeah, absolutely.
CYA.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think there are really wonderful doctors out there who really will listen. And if you have one, you're really, really lucky. But that would be the first thing I would look at is my doctor respecting me and listening to what I have to say before coming in and just prescribing pills.
We're in such a pivotal time. The Apple Card is being overturned because Dana White, the CEO of the UFC, came out and said, I will never go to a doctor for medical advice again. Mm-hmm. They don't know anything. I will go to them when I need a surgery done or something of that sort. But the idea that they're going to tell me how to live my life, when you have these guys like Gary Brecka coming along, and essentially what he does, it's a diet that's incredibly expensive and hard to achieve, where what he does is he says, we're just going to take your food, and it's going to be 100% whole foods, organic type foods. And the transformation that happens to people is just amazing.
Yeah.
And you have your doctor still eating his applesauce out of the apple cup. Right. And so I think that when these doctors went and they started to tell us that masks should be put on the school children, and we're out there doing the data ourselves, and then we're going into the school board meetings and we look more established and professional than a career doctor,
absolutely,
that put a lot of discredited them to a great extent. And I don't know, like if you're a young kid going to get your 11 years to get a medical license in college and $150,000, $200,000 in debt, you know, when the whole career appears to be going I don't want to say going away, but there's no way that it's enriching.
I think
it's going downward.
Yeah, you said so many things. Medical freedom, right? When you think your doctor can just listen to you and base decisions on what you need, the other person that's in the room is the insurance company, right? So a lot of it is, we want, even for therapy, we want this patient we know that they need this many therapy sessions, with this frequency in order to get better. Oh, let me check with their insurance and see what they're going to pay, right? And then because insurance says, oh, they can only have that much, we've been trained to write that as the order. So there's nothing that says we should write that in the chart, that they should have this many sessions, and then insurance disagrees, and that's not really spoken to. I mean, a lot of times they will tell patients, well, let's see what your insurance, even how long you're in the hospital, is based on what the insurance company says, who's not there caring for you and doesn't know what you're going home to and doesn't know how capable and independent you are, or if you have people around to help you. And everything is coded. So when you put in symptoms, you get a code for the diagnosis, and that code has certain medications attached to it or therapies attached to it. And everything has these numbers that's coded, and you have to follow the codes and what spits out on your computer screen in order to get the payment that you want. Yeah. So
these concepts of prana and chi, it's called chi?
Yeah. Or I just call it energy.
Right. These concepts are so foreign to us that it's hard to even understand them for us in the Western society. When I lived in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, the family there wanted me to go get acupuncture. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I don't know if the needles are clean. I'm in a third world country. But now everything that we're doing here, we're sort of, giving it more legitimacy. They're third world, but their methods seem and have a lot of credibility. But getting back to my point, the ideas of prana and chi are so conceptually hard for us to get. I've watched 101 Robert Safir videos, and I still don't entirely get the concept. It sounds like you do, but I mean, what do you think? Do you think? I mean, is it a frustration for you? I mean, like, do you think Don't you agree that it's like hard for people on our side to understand this concept?
I think to understand a concept, you have to have the language and vocabulary to understand it. And from the time we're little, we haven't had that vocabulary built in. And if it's built in, it's as woo-woo built in. But I think you can always look back to love, and that usually can guide you. Like, you can love someone that's sending positive energy to them. When you have someone who's really sick and you go over and hold their hand, you're doing it. And when they squeeze you back, they just gave it back to you. And you cry,
There's no question.
and you feel it. And this is a physical feeling that's really hard to put labels on and vocabulary with, because there's a lot of things that we experience in our life that are magical and spiritual, but our vocabulary has been stripped of it. If you go,
Yes.
And so it's like, well, we don't have the words to describe
Probably
it.
on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you go give a person a good, strong hug, it is so, it's a release. Mm-hmm. It's so relieving. So, yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. And yeah, we probably don't have the vocabulary for it, and that's probably on purpose. Again, 100 years ago, there was a purposeful effort to make our chemical-based drugs become the dominant default position. Mm-hmm. And then what they did is they began to donate to the medical schools to get just a whole generation of professionals, our best and brightest, to begin, making their careers on that. And here we are today, all jacked up on chemicals.
Yeah. I think one thing I wanted to say earlier, too, you brought up Russia. I have a dear friend who is a pharmacist from Russia. And, their training is half with herbs and half with medicine pills, pharmaceutical pills. And so it's like half and half. And they come out knowing that the herbs, these herbs will help you. You can try this. And there are pharmacies there, and other countries around the world, their pharmacy actually has herbs that are effective. The problem with our pharmacies, you have your supplements row and stuff like that. Bioavailability is really low. So we might not necessarily absorb what we think we're absorbing when we take those things.
I think the other method that they use to sort of like get us to the place that we are is whatever legitimate, like for example, environmentalism, mm-hmm. right? Because you said that dandelions produce are bountiful, right? They can be helpful to us.
Yeah.
And what do? We get the weed whacker out and we take them out. And there's always been a movement for the environment to let these things grow, let the earth, do its thing. But what they do is I believe that the establishment, they will infiltrate those movements, and they'll put these lunatic, violent communists at the beginning, at the front of them, on a specific purpose to discredit the movement. So, by the way, it should be known that we are both from Youngstown, Ohio. Yes, we are. This is awesome. So,
you guys are really lucky to have us both together.
Yep. Aaron Fowler is from Youngstown, Ohio. I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. We found this out just in the room a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
And we had a very good conversation on that. One of the things is that back in Youngstown, I was always against the labor unions, but I didn't understand them. Okay, mm-hmm. So if you look at in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I'm going to forget the battle that happened between the Pinkertons and the workers. The Hempstead battle or something like that. But essentially what happened is that the business class was really punishing the worker class, and a fight broke out. Mm-hmm. But when you read that story, you learn the legitimacy of workers' rights movements. Well, I was never given that history. And then when we did have unions in Youngstown, what they would do is they'd have these leaders, they would have demands that were off the charts, that were unreasonable. And what I'm trying to say is I feel like all of these movements were sort of hijacked to remove legitimacy away from them. They put communist, Marxist commies in there, and what they do is they make it so that they're unreasonable and no one can deal with them in an effort to nosedive the workers' rights mm-hmm. movement and keep the profits coming for the business class. And my point being is the same thing with the environment. In Youngstown, we have the Mahoning River, and it was polluted beyond compare. But again, what the people of Youngstown want, we want the steel industry, the steel factories sitting in harmony with nature, which is totally achievable. But what the environmentalists want is they want the complete destruction and eradication of industry. They don't get, and by the way, they don't give a gosh darn about the
Yeah.
environment. They're doing it as a political movement. So that's another thing that we got robbed from us in our hometown of Youngstown, Ohio. What do you think on that stuff that I just said?
I think that you hit a really hard thing for all of us to swallow, is that they are taking the history, they're changing it, and they're teaching it to you as a child, and you are growing up in a town that's really strong Union town back in the day, and just because of what you learned in school, and that was taught to us to be the authority, and they know, and then you go home and tell your parents, if they say something different, you're like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about,
Right.
because the teacher knew. And so they were able to, just in a generation or so, flip what it means, the support of the unions there. And I totally agree with you that they took the top, and they became very, very corrupted, and the unions lost power because of that. It was taken in a totally different direction.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And the other thing that Aaron and I talked about was our congressman back there, Jim Trafficant. And we grew up with Jim Trafficant, and he's a household name in Youngstown. He's a pretty big figure there. He's now passed. But when we grew up, what we were taught was that the people loved him, but there was a serious movement to discredit him because he dressed funny, he looked funny, and he was outlandish. But sometimes it takes eccentric people to get points across. But they did such an effort of discrediting him that my whole life I thought the guy was off his rocker. Here we are today, and people are bringing back Jim Trafficant's videos, and we're seeing huge amounts of legitimacy in these videos.
Yeah.
This is 2-3 decades ago, and he's talking about a government within the government. He's talking about an attempt to create a one world globalist new world order, all of these things. And, and so it's just one more commonality that I think that people from Youngstown, Ohio are kind of going through. And I just like to say, to finish up, that I find his death to be very mysterious. I've always thought it was funny.
Suspicious.
And here we are today in a time when these ideas are now getting legitimacy. The idea of a nationalist economy, the idea of a country's living for their own sake. When they go into negotiations with other countries, they do it on a win-win basis. And I just think that when he died, the globalist unit had control of both parties because the Bushes were running the Republican Party. So they couldn't really have this guy that had so much prominence out there talking about this stuff. I mean, can you imagine what a national figure he'd be today?
They couldn't control him.
Yeah.
They couldn't control him, and I think that's true for all people of Youngstown.
Yeah. So
But that's why
up
they
and dies,
discredit
right?
him. Yeah, they threw him in jail, said he was part of the mob or something, and
Yeah, well, they got him on tax evasion, which
Yeah.
I wish I could. We should all evade our taxes. In my
right.
opinion, I think taxation is theft.
A politician's never done that.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Just him.
Okay, so getting back to your career, though, I think the reason that you speak about these really completely foreign ideas to us, these foreign therapies, and you speak with such comfort, is because during the COVID flu, you were overwhelmed with patients that were looking for new therapies, and you found this out just through the necessity of healing your patients. Am I right?
Yes, it did have an uptick in referrals to me for. Yeah, that's kind of, and then I said, well, I might as well just do this on the side too, and just work with the general public for it. Yeah.
So Robert Safir also says that just like these theories, these methods, these really interesting ideas, that not only can they be used for the good in people to make us better, to make us better souls, but there's also a dark, nefarious element that knows how to leverage these tactics for truly dark ways, dark methods.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about this?
Yes, and I absolutely agree. I think your audience probably very well versed in the dark arts or dark energy. And there's definitely different cultures around the world that believe in curses of different things, or you'll see people with with a little blue eye there to ward off they wear jewelry, the evil eye jewelry and things like that. And absolutely, we live in a world of, so this goes back to natural law, and one of the laws of natural law is polarity. So we have opposites here. So usually one thing always has something else on the other end of it. And I think that's just the way a lot of things are here. Or you're usually always going to be able to identify what the opposite of something would be. It's just part of our world. Yeah.
Well, let's see if I don't know. We covered quite a lot. I mean, do you have anything that you want to talk about? Any subjects? This is a fascinating conversation. I mean, it's really hopping. What do you have anything that you want to talk about?
Oh my gosh, now I don't know. I was
oh my
gonna
goodness!
say
Wait,
some-
you're
I
short
know,
on
right?
words. I didn't think that was possible. No, your content is incredible.
Yeah,
Again, I say a lot of times when I have to prep for the show, I don't know if the other person on the other side is going to be able to, fill the hour with content. And this is really incredible information.
Thank you. So you asked me how I know the energy work works, that it's effective, in other words. So, and originally I was just using it for myself for probably like a decade before I even really dove in. I mean, I was using it with my very severe patients. Maybe they were in a coma or nonverbal severe autism. I had classrooms where they would be all special, very, very profound special needs kids. And I became the person that everybody would call if there's an emergency because someone's banging their head and they're bleeding, or this kid's throwing desks. And a lot of them were bigger than me because it wasn't just all little kids. And sometimes I would be in the high school. And so how do you restrain someone who's like 3 times your size? And he would, like my one client would just pick me up when I would walk in to the classroom like a teddy bear. And I just say, you need to put me down. He just, he had that mindset, but he didn't really realize it was inappropriate until I started working with him. But anyway, when they would have behaviors that would escalate to a very dangerous situation, not just for themselves, but for everybody around them, and they would cause damage in the classroom too. And then somehow I would be the one that would have to respond to the emergencies and run down the room. Or they'd say, oh, they're having a bad behavior, go to the speech room. And then I'm in the middle of working with other kids, and then here comes the kid charging in with bad behaviors, have to deal with them too. So like, how do you keep charge of the energy of those rooms of what seems like just real random independent kids that are going to act out and that don't necessarily follow directions at all? So you have to be working with something to be able to just walk in and they say, you walk in the room and it becomes quiet. And I was like, yeah, because the whole way there I was grounding, getting into the flow. And then I came in with the intention that it would just kind of be quiet. And so I think it's really helpful for anyone in the medical field, especially teachers or education. And once you open that door to learning, now you opened a whole other door into what's into healing and health and what's actually healthy. And I did want to touch base a little bit on the RFK thing and how he just came out and said they're going to require doctors to have nutrition classes. And I did want to talk a little bit about that. I took plenty of nutrition classes. I was interested in it because part of speech therapy is helping people to swallow their food. So we always say we work from the neck up. The same muscles you use to talk are the same muscles you use to swallow. So I was like, well, if I'm going to, and I was so shocked to learn that other speech therapists weren't into nutrition. Because I'm like, well, if we are going to be feeding someone, don't you want to be and we pick the food, right? And so we go in with our little snacks, and maybe they haven't eaten because they just had a stroke, right? And so let's say someone just has a stroke, the person that's going to feed them next is going to be the speech therapist to make sure they can swallow. Why are we giving them graham crackers with food dye, corn syrup solids, and sometimes just like these like terrible lemonades with the yellow food dye and artificial all kinds of flavors in there? Why are we giving them that after they had a stroke as their first food? we could easily be giving them nourishing broth. We can give them other things. Like, so we're worried about texture when we go in. And so why aren't we worried about texture and healing properties of that food if we're going to introduce it back into the body? And they have a drawer for us, and it's all like you mentioned, pre-packaged applesauce. That's in there, graham crackers, maybe some other cookies that are terrible for you, and some canned peaches or pears. That's just in corn syrup. And so why are we giving them this? And so, but when you take nutrition classes, they don't talk about how food is medicine and how herbs can heal you either in those nutrition classes. To be a dietitian and all the nutrition classes, those are all under the same system that doctors are being trained in. So a nutrition class doesn't teach you what herbs are for anything. They don't talk about that. They might talk about the vitamins in it. They might talk about how many calories are in it, things like that you read on the food label. But they don't talk about all the important healing properties of that food. And they definitely don't talk about how important soil is. So when you talk about eating food, you need to go back to, well, where did it grow? And what was the soil content there? And that's going to be part of the food that you're eating. And we've totally lost that connection.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching a story about a farm in a family farm in Georgia. And in the 50s, his dad was approached by the chemical salesman, and they said, hey, put this stuff on your farm, it'll grow bigger. And it did. I mean, everything grew faster, quicker, bigger. But at the same time, it rotted out the soils. It began to really hurt and damage the animals. So when he acquired the farm, 4 decades later, and he took it over from his dad, he went back to an all-natural type of way of growing the farm, which was very risky when your whole business is built on it. And what happened is the wildlife came back, the animals were healthier, everything, the produce came back, and now in this small town in Georgia, he's the largest employer for the town.
Yeah. We also don't talk enough about native plants either. So we're kind of touching on permaculture stuff to help your plants be the healthiest that they could be, because then you're going to be the healthiest you can be, right? So when you eat something with good enriched soil, you're going to be healthier, even if you eat the same food, right? So someone over here can have the exact same diet as someone over here, but this person got to eat it and organic is a label now that's totally been diluted as well. They're really changing the definition of what organic is. And so it's like a whole other thing. But if this other person was able to eat from a trusted farmer or grew their own food in healthy soil, that is very different than this other person who maybe got everything just off of the grocery store, but their food lacked nutritional value because what they were buying off the grocery store shelves, it could be like a year or two old. It was just in a room of nitrous oxide. Well, of course it's going to lose its nutritional value and its life force. So then again, we're talking about energy and the life force of energy. And anything alive has that energy in it. There's really fun potato experiments and food experiments that we can like stick in the little electrode wires, and it can like light a little light bulb just with a potato. So it's like life force. That's what energy is. It's in our food, and you can. We actually have that planned as a homeschool science experiment, is to use some of the potatoes that are growing in the garden versus some potatoes that we find at the store, and we're going to see if the potatoes in our garden will light more bulbs. But yeah.
Well, I mean, the conversation's just getting good, and we're at the end of our hour. But, very incredible. I first want to say that I think that the children, I mean, can you imagine if we had a generation of children brought up on learning that the potatoes have energy in it, and doing that experiment? I mean, that would just get in the brain, and then everything just percolates from there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you made your case. I mean, I really do think you made your case.
Thanks.
When you say that potatoes light up a light, I think you're making your case. When you say that you do the experiment with the rice, and the rice that's prayed over grows better than the other two forms.
These are things you can do at home with your kids, with your nieces and nephews. You don't have to have kids. Just have a little get together and try it, and with your own eyes, and see what people observe. And I will want to say one quick thing. about Houston is that the permaculture community here is very strong. The native plants, the people here who are working on native plants are amazing, and the homeschool community is thriving here. And so there are just group after group. I get goosebumps saying it because I love Youngstown and I love Ohio, but why I'm here is because really there is and it's all different people that are coming together with the intention to learn and be open-minded and to be free. And I'm really happy to be here. But we're here, so if anyone's interested in it, there are experts upon us experts here.
Yeah, I really think, again, that we're on foundational changes in our society, in our lifetime. You know, I tell everybody, take your vitamins, do your exercises, eat right, because the best is yet to come. I mean, just as... what happens when we're learning all this stuff, we're uncovering all of the dark agenda against us, all of the poisons in our foods, all of these sinister schemes against us. And that black pills some people, they get defeated from that process.
Yes.
I don't get defeated. I get liberated because,
Yeah.
and then they say, oh, well, it can happen again. It can't happen again. Crimes require darkness. They require darkness. That's why we've been kept in the dark. That's why we've been dumbed down. That's why they put fluoride in our water. But now the fluoride's coming out of the water. New trends are happening. We're having these incredible conversations. You cannot fool a person twice.
Yeah.
And so even though things aren't happening at the pace that we want to, the number one indicator of the future is the public opinion. And public opinion, we are still the smaller group, but we have all of the momentum. And in order to win a fight, you have to be on offense.
Yeah.
So things are going to come. Put your money on America. Put your money on mankind, because it's the best bet you can make. I want to say, we're pulling pulling fluoride out of the water in Florida, banning fluoride in the water in Utah. And now I heard that in the state of Florida, that there'll be warning labels put on certain foods like Skittles and Doritos and possibly M&Ms, warning people that these are not made to be ingestible. So these are incredible times.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got to feel the prana and go with it.
Yeah, exactly. But you use it as a call to action when you hear and you research and you learn something new that kind of rocks your world, even like just about the one that's hot, food dye right now, for example. Just choose to do something about it and take actions to do it. And there's a lot of people that now know that and have come around to accepting it, but what actions are you taking? And take those actions and to, be with the people, get with your people.
I think if you listen to this hour, you became a healthier person. I think the one thing that we both want, we want our friends and family and our loved ones to live long, healthy lives. I can't keep talking. But okay, I'm studying aged models on Instagram. And these people, 92-year-old winning sprint races, 92-year-olds running marathons, 85-year-olds getting bodybuilding competitions, 85-year-olds going in the outdoor gym and doing gymnastics. That's amazing.
Mindset.
Times. Yeah.
Power of the mind. We could talk about that another
Absolutely.
day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good.
Thank you.
Well, very nice to meet you, Erin,
Nice to meet
my
you
fellow
too.
Youngstowner.
That was great.
And thank you for your hour. Thank you for all that your information. It's really helpful to
Thank
everyone.
you. I
We
hope
appreciate
so.
it.
That was my intention today. So.
Good.
Okay.
Good. And this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Show. We will see you next Saturday, 10 a.m. with one more hot topic. Have a great week.